Hello everyone, welcome to episode 79? Is it 79, Tuttles? 89?
Yeah.
79? 79 of the Titanforge Podcast. I'm Dratnos, joined by Tuttles, and Trell, who I've unfortunately actually swapped in the
I'm Tuttles now.
How could this happen to me? Alright, hang on. This is gonna be epic.
Yes.
Okay. There we go.
So epic. Thank you, Drados.
Yeah,
Great opener.
I deserve doing this after it happens on MDI Broadcast or whatever the names are. There's just so much going on, last thing you think of. Anyways, welcome back, Trell. Welcome back to our show. It's good to have you back. How you feeling?
Thanks. I'm getting there. I'm almost back to normal, kind of. It takes time.
It's very good. We're glad you're okay. You're, of course, now without an appendix, which is, I guess, good? Is that good, or is that bad?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
One less problem that can go wrong, even though, it's kind of bad that it went wrong at all, but yeah, don't lose your appendix in the first place. Maybe just keep it safe. That's my tip of the week as well.
That's good. We'll cover that more when we get to the tip of the week segment, of course. It's an important tip for sure.
But it's effective weight loss surgery, though. I'm sure you got lighter.
That's true. I lost 15 pounds for a lot of money, I guess. I was going to say for free, but that's definitely not free.
Kona.
Somebody had to pay for it.
And wait, dude, how much does the appendix weigh? Do they give it? Do you get to keep it?
Oh, I have no idea.
Do you get to keep it?
I don't know, man. Do they give it to you in a bag or something?
I never saw the stuff that was removed from me. No.
Okay,
it's not like your adenoids or something, man.
I just thought it would be a cool souvenir.
You did pay for it.
That's true. It's kind of yours. They sort of stole it from you if you think about it. Anyways,
that's a good point.
Rather than think about that, let's talk about some World of Warcraft stuff. This week we're going to talk a little bit about the MDI. We're going to talk a little bit about the dungeon raid tuning changes that have come out recently, which there's actually quite a bit. A lot of it's really good. Some of it's a little more sketch. And we have a Discord question that we'll do as part of our main topic this week as well, which is basically about if we could make one change to several different categories in the game, what would those changes be? It's a really cool question, and we'll spend some time talking about that. In the news front as well, we also have the World First 24 was completed just 6 hours ago over in China, where it's still Spiteful Volcanic fortified with a powerhouse team comp here. This one's not actually making use of the 5 Night Elf strategy that we saw World First 23 done with.
Are they not the 5 elves?
Yeah.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah.
Are they 4 elves?
I am not sure. Let's see. I guess it doesn't say easily on mouse over. But they could be. They've got a Holy Pally though, so they lose a lot of time if they are trying to do Night Elf stuff. It was a Necrotic Wake though, which kind of doesn't surprise me, because Necrotic Wake has always felt like one of those dungeons where if everything goes right, it's so good on the timer.
Yeah, I actually do agree with that. That seems like that's pretty reasonable. I assume that they probably did some weird shit where they snapped the Necropolis.
Maybe, yeah. It's I don't know if there's any VODs of it or anything. But that's cool little piece of news. Of course, we're not going to see any new high keys done this week, as it is now bolstering Necrotic Tyrannical, which
the trifecta of bad affixes.
It's definitely tough. Definitely a tough week to be gaming, especially as a tank.
I started writing my weekly Wowhead post about the best and worst Mythic Plus dungeons to do this week, and I sat there, and I don't know how many times I talked about Tyrannical, but it was not many. Basically, everything I covered was like, what the fuck is bolstering a Necrotic in this dungeon? Why is it like this?
Also, Necrotic Tyrannical is also a brutal combo. Like, there's several bosses that are just gonna pound your tank with that combo.
Oh god, we love Gore Chop on Tyrannical, where your tank doesn't get a reset. Very cool.
Yeah, you gotta AoE stun those ads and not let them get close at all. Like, one auto goes through from them during Gore Chop's cast sequence, and your tank's gonna die. Okay, so let's, I guess, move on a little bit to MDI stuff. In our global bracket this week, we actually had a pretty surprising result, which was that Perplexed took down Echo, who were I would say pretty overwhelming favorites going into the weekend. Even though Perplexed won the last cup of the last season, Echo had won the finals after that, and we're looking really strong. But
Perplexed is actually just like a solid team overall. The core of that team has actually been doing MDI consistently together longer than the core of Echo. With Divine, Shine, and maybe it's just them two left from the original team that they were on. But
Swag was on a version.
Swag?
Yeah, never mind. That's right.
Yeah, I want to say it's just those two from the Legion team, but as a team, they've gotten better and better every single MDI, and it's always just like as soon as you see them put up a time in time trials, you're like, that's probably one of the fastest times.
Yeah, they were really close in time trials in a lot of the dungeons. Although Echo did have the upper hand in the time trials, Perplexed really showed up on the weekend itself with very clean runs consistently, which is impressive because those dungeons, even on plus 18, are no walk in the park. You know, you see the plus 24s or whatever timed on the live keys, but the 18s are really pretty deadly too. So yeah, very well done by Perplexed. Looking forward to seeing what happens next weekend. I expect that Echo will be really looking to come back with a vengeance. We also had a PI Me in third, which was Dr. J's team, and Obey Alliance in fourth, which is formerly known as Ethical. They're that Oceanic team. So a lot of talent at the top of the top four in the global region. There was a lot of prides being skipped with the 5 Night Elf strategy. Most teams ran 5 Night Elves in most dungeons, but there were a couple dungeons where people played Holy Pallies. Generally, they didn't win those dungeons, but they did a couple of
close.
Yeah.
G's team came really close to taking Halls of Atonement from Echo.
Yeah, that was game
Holy
one
Pally
of day
versus
one.
Night Elves.
It was game one, day one, 8 seed versus first seed, and you thought you're used to Echo just like rolling in and smashing, but question marks with Jeeth on the Holy Pally really almost took it from them in game one, which is it set the stage for a weekend where like all 8 teams were really close together, and there were a lot of upsets. A lot of times the lower seeded team ended up winning their game, so it was definitely pretty cool. There was a lot of homogeneity in the specs, especially in the tank department.
Yeah.
A lot of Vengeance Demon Hunter. We did see some bears.
Yes.
We saw a little bit of
one bear.
Yeah,
tank balance
we saw
is just
one
so
bear
good
in Halls of Atonement, which was pretty good. It was a necrotic dungeon. And the Thrash Legendary Incarn combo. I've been playing that on my bear on live as well. It's that was the first build I was like drawn to on bear, and it's so fun.
That Ursul's Fury Remembered Legendary actually goes through necrotic, so you just get massive shields if you're doing huge pulls. So that's why Rentari's health stayed really high, even though he's getting slammed by like 20 mobs.
Yeah, so it let them do like these big AoE pulls, and they did die once on pull, where just like that bear phenomenon, where like the first 3 auto attacks in any given pull probably kill you. But after they figured out how to survive those first 3 auto attacks, it was all uphill from there.
Do you think Guardian is like a likely candidate to actually be brought out for necrotic across the whole entire season, or do you think it's just like a Halls of Atonement special?
I thought Guardian would be superior in necrotic across the board, but seeing like how Demon Hunter can make it work with like the 8-second necrotic immunity for one of the Kyrian trees that you can take, I think that alone allows Demon Hunter to just play around necrotic just like any other tank, or just like Guardian would.
Hey, Dratnus, I also regret to inform you that apparently on our other board, the names are jumbled up.
On our other board? Oh no.
Yeah, on the other.
Right. We'll do a swap there as well. I thought that would be the case as well. Yeah. Okay.
Do we want to talk about the China Cup? I think that would be interesting to discuss as well a little bit.
Yeah, that'll give me an opportunity to move our things around as well. So we have the China Cup actually had a lot of no-shows, which I mean we haven't been following it too directly, right? We were just but here's the bracket on Radar.io. This is the upper bracket. Let me do this ooh, that's not what I wanted to move. Okay, let me do the swap now.
Is the China Cup being broadcast anywhere? I didn't catch it. Whether
it's on Douyu, yeah. It was being broadcast on Douyu. I didn't get a chance to watch any of it, so I don't know how close or competitive it was, but I do know it was being broadcast. Yeah.
Yeah. So we had what 1, 2, 3, 4 different teams ending up no showing at different points. including a team that won a game. Did they? Yeah, this team won a game. And where did they go? Oh yeah, okay, yeah. So they went here, then they won an actual game, and then they no-showed for their next series. And then the next series? Yeah, I'm not sure. It seems like so there were 6 different no-show series out of the 14 different series.
Including the upper finals, which is
yes.
You know, upper no showing the upper and lower finals.
That is I mean,
it's pretty crazy.
Not a good look for optics, I will admit.
Okay, so like the teams that just no-showed round 1, that's kind of understandable, right? Like you just somebody on your team isn't available to make the tournament. But there are several teams here that played a series, and then ended up no-showing later. This team made it all the way to the grand finals, better us, without playing a single game. Their upper quarters, upper semis, upper finals were all no-shows, and then they actually won 2-0 in the finals. That's wild.
Insane.
This is a wild bracket.
Yeah. Interesting question, chat. About the how many spots does China get at LAN?
2.
They get 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's because this kind of thing started last MDI. Maybe even the MDI before that. I can't remember if they were doing that then. But like all the Chinese teams seem to band together and just be like, okay, we're all going to put in like half as much effort as we want to. So we all have like similar time trial times, but they're all pretty slow. Like if you looked at their time trial times from this last cup, the fastest bolstering hauls was like 22 minutes or something.
Dude, it just fucking confuses the shit out of me because last time we had a China only region, was in Legion, and they had really good teams. Like they had there was a Skyline D team and there's a Sun Sky team. And the Sun Sky team played like this weird ass comp, but their times were still like not bad. The Skyline D team was actually like a world competitor level team as well. But then now we have this shit, and it's just like, how does this happen? How?
Yeah, I'm curious to know exactly what was causing all these no-shows as well. It's just kind of baffling.
And you also have like Team D and Battle for Champion, and then like if you look at the Raider IO ladder for like live pushing,
the World First 23, the World First 24 were both done by Chinese teams as well.
There's like 5 of the top 20 teams are Chinese teams. Like they were fucking good at Mythic Plus. What are they doing with the MDI, man?
Maybe it's just a case of like the good pushing teams have no interest in MDI there, because that's kind of true in the rest, like in the Western regions as well, right? Where like there are several teams that play live but don't play MDI, and vice versa in a couple cases.
I mean, that's fine, yeah.
And yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I think there's always some of that. I swear though, I swear all the teams just like are in one Discord together, and they're like, all right, everyone, we're just not going to try very hard. And if we get to like 4th place, we'll just no show, and you guys can take.
I doubt there's collusion.
Yeah, the collusion.
I
mean, maybe.
I swear it has to be that, but hopefully
it's definitely 6 no shows is hard to explain, like as a random happenstance, right? Like that's a lot of no shows to be going on. I don't really know. Anyways, don't want to dwell too long on that. We could talk a little bit about the so much as the tanks were pretty much all Vengeance, I think there was pretty good diversity in the DPS slots. The healers were basically all Disc Priest because of, Rest of Shaman, KP Night Elf. There were a couple Holy Paladins actually in Resto Druid as well, but basically I don't think any of those really won their series. The DPS
basically healers have to be disciplined. As long as PI exists, they have to be disciplined. As long as the Disc Priest can heal the damage, then you have to take a Disc Priest because you just get so much extra damage on your Fire Mage.
Then every group basically had a mage in every dungeon, a Fire Mage, because again, they're really good at everything. They take the PI really well. But then we saw Death Knights, Hunters, Druids, Balance Druids, Windwalkers, and Rogues taking up those other slots. And we actually saw, much as there wasn't too much spec diversity, even in the tank and healer roles, there was a tremendous amount of Covenant diversity. We saw 2 different Covenants for Vengeance, 4 different Covenants for Disc. We saw... 2 different Covenants for Hunters, 2 different Covenants for Balance Druids, maybe 2 for Rogues as well, and definitely 2 for Unholy DKs. So there was actually quite a bit of difference between teams in different dungeons, and I'm curious to see if there ends up being convergence going into the later cups or more divergence in that. That'll be an interesting thing to see. Definitely it was cool to see these like mirror matches where there were actually like 3 different Covenant choices between the teams, and seeing when that mattered. Although often it's just because the Covenant choice isn't that impactful. which lets it be a not as big of a choice.
I actually thought the Night Fae Discipline Priest pick was really cool. I didn't even think about that until I saw it in the cup.
Yeah, because it brings you like mana regen and cooldown recovery for whoever you're helping. So like you can regen mana, you can make the mage get more CDR. It's
I mean, notably, you don't get CDR on like PI and shit though. But
right, yeah. Well, you wouldn't really want it anyway, because well, I guess if you're giving your mage cooldown reduction, you'd like some as well. So
yeah,
you don't get it. There were some issues in the MDI. There were a couple of slight hiccups, mostly amidst the Tiernan Scythe. There was a count issue with the Tiernan villagers not giving count when there was an observer in the group, which you've seen before. That's whenever there's like a mob that goes friendly or disappears and gives count that way. Sometimes when there's an observer in the group, stuff gets weird because it like gives the count to them or whatever or something instead.
That's because the players are in a raid group when they're doing the MDI. They're actually in a raid group with two observers in like group 8, so they're not in their frames. And people have to alter their weak auras, and this is kind of a tangent, but like the MDI players have to alter weak auras and their UI to untrack the mage kicks and all that from the observers. It's really interesting how it all works.
Yeah, you
but
actually
it definitely causes problems.
You should, if you're going to do MDI practice, you should try practicing with like somebody outside the raid in a raid group. It does help you get all your stuff set up for it. Then there were also maze issues in Mists, which they ended up fixing after the first series, but the first series had like two like a game and then a remake, and then that next game had it as well. So they ended up like replaying the Mist a couple hours later, and that ended up not being great, of course. Again, that was an issue with trying like stuff that's Tournament Realm specific, not live servers, and really goes to show why they do so much testing for live server stuff, because there's so much stuff that can go wrong. Then when it's a little bit less tested on the Tournament Realm, it can happen there too with whatever's new. We also saw the Halkias thing, where
that was so unlucky too, because they actually lost a series lost a match that they would have knocked out PI me, which got fourth place. But they got the Halkias,
which to be fair, there is play. You can play around the Halkias thing by like not moving Halkias right before his reflection, but
man, you can.
It is an unfortunate bug for sure. That's the bug where I'm sure you guys. I've run into this in my keys as well, where Halkias like the safe zones are dangerous and the dangerous zones are safe from his beam spinnies.
I think it's either movement right before, or if you put him like half on like a slanted ground, because there's like a little patch of like rocks that you can put him on. The good old rock placements in dungeons that screw everything up. You gotta watch out for those.
Yo, I hope we get the one where he like Beyblades and fucking just blasts. Dude, can you imagine if you and I are sitting there casting that and then it happens? You and I are just gonna sit there and be like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I've seen that one before as well. Luckily, it was
I don't know if I'd be able
to not one shot, but
I don't know if I'd be able to control myself from laughing, just like dying as it happens.
The MDI also had a new UI, which I thought was pretty sleek. I think they ended up like the first day there were a couple of kinks they were working out, and it still has a little bit of an issue where it can like cover the boss health, but it's now like full screening much more often with like picture in picture rather than that 2-box, which. For anybody who's ever tried to design like a OBS scene and you're trying to put 2 rectangles into your scene and not have a bunch of dead space, it's actually a really hard problem to solve.
True.
Like really hard.
Fitting 2 1920 by 1080 boxes into one 1920 by 1080 box and downsizing the 2 smaller ones is definitely a problem that is difficult to find.
So they're now just like, usually there's just like one full screen with a picture in picture in the corner, which I think looks pretty good. For the most part, it's just a little bit of getting used to. And
would you change anything about the UI at this point?
There are a couple suggestions I had where like doing the 2-box, but with how they have like health frames and details on the screen. I would take those out of the part that's shown and move them up into that dead space, and then just have the like in the 2-box the feed be just pure gameplay with no UI or stuff, and all the UI elements moved up into that dead space.
Into like, okay, as opposed to actually being on the... that's actually interesting.
Yeah, I don't know how feasible. I think that might require them to have an extra observer in each one though, because it's because of the way that they
I mean,
capture that.
that seems reasonable to me though, to have an extra, even an extra observer, because right now they have 2 observers per. But like, I guess it would be difficult to have them like, because one thing that we were having issues of is like people they were showing like whenever people died, it was hard to always tell if they released versus got rezzed and shit, because it was like difficult to see if they were in range of the observer versus not, and you're like,
Yeah,
wait, what happened?
Like when you actually you get to talk to the observers doing this, the stuff that they are like, they're working with like a 20-year-old game engine now that was not supposed to be like it's not supposed to be something that was an observer client, so they're just like floating around on their invisible mages and like using a controller to turn and stuff.
And for those who don't know, Starship, who is one of the GCD TV people, who like has to fucking rig up like a bunch of random stuff as well to make sure that it's all feasible, and he writes a bunch of scripts and stuff. It's really interesting. Trell, would you change anything about the UI though?
Yeah. There was something about the enemy forces count that was weird. I think the first game I watched, it just didn't even show it until like both teams were at 40%, so I couldn't tell.
It was like slow to update as well, which apparently is just a limitation of the way they're tracking right now.
Yeah, I actually heard about what the deal with that was. Did you actually hear what the deal with that was, Dretnus?
No,
so
I didn't catch it.
They were pulling stuff from the combat log, but the combat log doesn't update enemy forces count until after a certain number of events have happened. So they would like say you touch of death the mob at the end, right? That's the end of like that combat tag, and you would like burn the mob from like 5%. So you wouldn't be able to update the count until like you get back in combat later on.
Interesting. Makes sense.
Yeah.
So they said, I think they said they were gonna be able to fix
presented it. They like there's no bar anymore, so you kind of just have to like look at the number and kind of match it up in your brain. Whereas you can't like look at 2 bars side by side and both screens and like see it filling up as they do the poll as stuff dies. I really enjoyed that about previous MDI UI, where someone would do a humongous pull, you'd see all the little mobs die and they'd go up like 7%, and you'd see all the big mobs die and they go up like 20% after everything died.
Yeah, if there was a way to incorporate, that weak aura that everybody uses now for their timer, where it actually tracks like how much count is in the pull that you're fighting right now, and then
the reload weak aura.
Oh yeah,
that'd be cool.
And the empty section, that kind of tech would definitely be awesome to get fit in there. But of course, everything like that comes with its own set of huge challenges that we don't know about. All right, let's move on to tip of the week. My tip of the week goes for tank players on Bolstering Necrotic. This is a useful strategy. So in your BattleNet client, up at the top right, you actually want to go, you can click here, and you can click this Appear Offline button. And this is going to help you avoid getting spam whispered, because as a tank player, all of the other tank players are already doing this week. And so that means that by being online, you're going to get like 30 whispers for keys. But when you go and you set yourself to appear offline, you can hide. You can hide from people and not get spam whispered for keys on this tyrannical Bolstering Necrotic week. So that's my tip of the week.
That is so accurate.
Yeah.
Or you can just be like me and be like, nope, I'm not tanking whatsoever.
Yeah. The other way to do this is every time somebody whispers you for key, you just say, "Can I bring my alt?" Eventually, they learn to stop whispering you. That's
Can I bring my
strategy.
180 Vengeance Demon Hunter?
Yeah. Dude, Vengeance Demon Hunter even at 180. I can do it. Okay, Trell, what is your tip of the week?
Oh, my tip is, if you have any control over your body, don't ever explode your appendix. It's not worth it in the slightest. It costs a lot of money, probably. Well, depending on the country you're in, it costs a lot of money and a lot of your time. So
yeah, so avoid doing
it's
that.
also very painful.
Yeah. What was it that caused you to decide to explode your appendix? What was the thought process that caused
he was trying to get out of MDI. He was trying to get out of MDI that bad.
Yeah. I logged on my 229 perfectly geared Vengeance Demon Hunter with like 30% versatility. I walked up to 3 mobs on an 18 and they killed me through my mitigation, and then I just exploded my appendix out of rage.
All right, well, so yeah, don't do that. That's a good tip. Okay, let's do clip of the week, which is from Tettles. This is from Lepan's stream. This is the Necrotic Wake snap.
Yes. So basically what they're doing is they're sending their hunter, you can also do this with a rogue, up top in the necropolis and snap some mobs down to the bottom. I actually think that this has not a ton of use for live realm stuff, but it is still decently useful. I do think actually after the Kyrian armament change with all the weapon stuff, we're going to talk about in a little bit, but maybe less useful. But it's really nice to get this stuff stacked up if you're electing to use like the javelin or the orb on it. Just getting these mobs a lot tighter. The downside is that you have to commit like a death, so you're losing 5 seconds there. But the upside is that the mobs are stacked pretty tight, and it gives you more room to be able to kite out like the Stitch Works and the other mobs as well. And I don't know. I do think that there's definitely some use for it in live realms. Maybe not the most useful thing ever, but pretty reasonable, I would say.
Yeah, they kind of gutted
yeah.
snapping going into this expansion, right? Like you can see, not only did it take a little while after the death for the mobs to snap, but you can see they're coming down piecemeal. They're evading for several seconds before they are actually attackable here. So there's a good chance that some random person in your group might get autoed, and your tank is having a really hard time building threat on all of these things at once. Still worthwhile in this particular instance, but I think this is basically the only spot that you can snap profitably.
Is there any other snaps that you even know? I don't really know.
There's the Spires mobs that snap every time you pull them.
The Spires ones.
Because they're bugged.
Oh, snap across the
ether divers
landing too.
The things up on the left after the first boss. Yeah, 2 of those 3 are just will not cooperate and always snap at you. Which
for those that don't know how snapping has changed in BFA, whenever you tricked or misdirected or just pulled mobs in a snap spot, they would just instantly port to the tank or whoever has aggro, and they would melee right away. And they had a chance of going anywhere in like a 360 degree around the player that they were going to. So they would just hit the tank in the back a lot of times. So you had to have like extra mitigation or shields up. But now they changed it so that they'll snap if they have no path available still in the same like 360 degree random location around the player, but they just evade for like 5 seconds before they do anything.
So you're able to actually,
you can actually position them better as a tank these days so that you don't ever get hit in the back. But you have to like time your AoE threat really well, like right as they become unevaded.
They evade before and after snapping. They will kill people who aren't their current threat target if they have path to them, but not to their threat target as well. So there's a lot of ways that it's nerfed.
You have to back off. Yeah, is what he's saying. So you gotta get the hell away from them.
No, I mean, like, the reason that the hunter has to die rather than can just feign and, like, jump back down and disengage or whatever is because the hunter actually, like, even if they've misdirected and shot everything, those mobs are still going to go and auto the hunter, which they wouldn't have done in BFA, right? In BFA, if you misdirect and then shoot something, it's never going to hit you. It's going to snap at your tank or run at your tank.
Yeah, that's true. They had to die anyway, though, just to get down from the necropolis.
That's true. It actually does sort of help.
You can come out of the necropolis just by jumping off like the little. There's a way to come out, but it's not reasonable either.
Right.
Well, okay, yeah.
So yeah, I mean,
just faster to die.
It is, if a Taldazar was playable again with these same affixes, it's possible you would do some kind of snap. I don't know.
Maybe
you could still do the snap onto Razan, because I bet he would teleport you down to him instantly again. Maybe I don't know. It's just weird. It is I think a very effective nerfing across the board of snaps this expansion, but in this one spot, because of the weird way that you teleport to an entirely new building, it sort of still works. But again, when we talk about the changes, which I guess we can talk about right now, dungeon and raid tuning.
Woohoo! Dranos is back raiding again.
Oh yeah, the Pop Tart Corn Dog raid. We're back once again. Actually, going to pull all the bosses because we'll get to that later. Let's start at the top. We'll just go through this list in a nice straight line. Dungeons and raids. Manifestation of Pride. Prideful affix. Now sees through stealth and invisibility effects.
Great change.
All that does is make people's lives harder on live keys. And that was not the intention of the change. They were trying to fix meld skips, but that doesn't affect meld skips at all because when you shadow meld skip, you're out of range of his aggro range anyway. So it doesn't matter if you see stealth.
Yes, this is a change that doesn't do anything. And that is true. It does seem like it is aimed at the MDI meld skips, but it does not affect them.
I mean, basically the way that they would have to do anything is like they would have to change how shadow melding would work with like true sight mobs or whatever. Because right now you can the way that you can meld off true sight mobs is like you either can line of sight them like around a corner. You can just all pop meld and then like the true sight mobs have no path to you, so they don't see through it, and then they'll just like reset. Or you can just be like outside of their pull radius, which is like 25 yards of true sight. It's like 20 yards, something like that. and if you're far enough away, the mob just resets. So, but the MDI guys were already getting out of range of the AoE from the Pride, which is like 60 yards. So they were already like really far. So this is no change or no difference now.
Yeah, we also have some changes here. What? It's Tuttles.
Tuttles.
He's opening a jar. Oh my god.
Yeah, I got requisite to open up a jar, whatever.
We also have Plaguefall, nerfs to the last boss. I think this is I guess a welcome boss to nerf. I think it was one of the harder ones. I'm not sure. So I'm not sure if you guys have done Plaguefall yet this week, how much less often she's going to cast Infectious Rain in the last phase, or how much slower the Plague Crash tendies are. The ads being less health and damage in that boss fight, that's probably welcome as well. They were getting pretty one-shotty.
Yeah, I think that fight definitely deserved the nerfs. I think they hit some good bosses in these tuning passes.
Yeah, so Sanguine Depths, the ads that didn't give count sometimes, the flying ones, which you rarely pulled on purpose anyways, now give count. First boss nerf, good nerf for the first boss, I think, here, which is the smashy, the AoE smash he does, and then the AoE damage of soaking the orbs that smash does have all been reduced by 20%.
I somehow think the soaking I think the soaking is not enough though. Like, so 20%, like you were only able to soak one or two of those orbs at once, and I feel like this boss should feel more like Ophiron and less like Mana Devourer, where it's like if you first off, you can't soak too many of them at once, otherwise you just die. And secondly, it's just like the way that you have to do the fight is you have to get out of range so far to drop the orbs because they move so quickly at the boss. Like, there could have been a different change as well where they made the travel time of the orbs about twice as long, and I think that would have about covered the same thing, but the charge would have overlapped poorly if they made it move twice.
With all of these changes as well, like something like a health and damage change, something like tagging a mob with True Sight, those changes are like easy. Adjusting like fundamentally how a mechanic works by like changing the pathing of or the speed of mobs. I guess speed might be something that they could adjust pretty quickly, pretty easily as well. But like a lot of people suggest a lot of fixes to Prideful Melding. Like they suggest adding the Awakened stuff where it spawns at the last boss if you haven't killed it. Anything like that, we're talking about a serious investment of code, right? Compared to just ticking a box on True Sight, or compared to just adjusting a number by 20%. Although speed might be just one of those easy changes as well.
Rumor has it that right now prides just aren't spawning.
Oh
yeah, so I saw a screenshot yesterday of two prides that were like attempting to spawn, but they're inactive in the Ardenweald area of the other side.
Oh, I've heard of the Ardenweald area being buggy. Yeah, I've heard that as well. So maybe that's just a buggy area for prides now. Don't know what would cause that.
Yeah, that's probably just a bug for a few days, but it's pretty funny.
Second boss of Sanguine Depths, health reduction on the Fleeting Manifestation. To me, this seems like a great boss to nerf, but the nerf that they've chosen is a little bit of a question mark for me, because I think that the tough overlaps come at the start of that thing's health, not the end anyway, usually, right?
So the tough overlaps happen on the second and the fifth ad that end up spawning. That comes with the second castigation. And I was actually talking about this a little bit yesterday. I thought that it wasn't enough of a nerf on this guy, and I thought the castigation was the problem. But as my chat pointed out, like you're reducing a lot of damage that is across the whole entire group just by reducing that thing's health, and you have to pump less damage into it, so the boss is effectively a lot faster too. So it is like it's a pretty decent nerf, and it ends up saving you a lot of pulsing AoE damage across it. It doesn't. I don't know. You're still going to be rough if you get targeted with castigation while the ad is up, but maybe the overlaps are going to be better now. I think that one is like let's see how this one really works out in practice.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way to know until next week, of course, because I'm not going in there.
I'm not going in there. I got a 21 Sanguine Depths. Do you guys want to run that?
Oh, I'm busy that day. Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry, I gotta go to the hospital.
my other appendix.
My other appendix. Oh.
As Fires of Ascension, we've got the 3 Valkyr Kyrian things at the end. They don't trigger on death affixes anymore, which is good, because if those things were to bolster after they died, like by the time the bolstering would trigger, because their death is a couple seconds after, it's the same time that everything else gets full healed. So you would actually have to like full heal and deal with the bolstering. That would be rough. So
That'd be really funny.
glad to see that's gone. And they also halved the damage taken increase of oppression, which again I think this is a good thing to nerf. I still believe that this is going to be one of the hardest moments in Spires. Is the last 3. These guys, I mean, it's basically 3 Shadow of Zul.
So the oppression change is actually a really good change because it also kind of nerfs the Klotos AoE pulsing damage.
Mhm.
I think that if I actually had to nerf this, I don't know if I would have nerfed the oppression stacking. I think I probably would have nerfed the Klotos damage done because the damage done from that pulsing AoE is like so oppressive in my mind that you don't know that you're making an actively wrong decision whenever you start to pull the mini bosses in like any order. But if you do anything except for Klotos, then you are actively just wiping.
That's true. Yeah, I think nerfing the Klotos effect to make it so that doing them in like, I mean, there's always going to be a right order to do them in, but making it so like if you're just in a pug and you accidentally kill Klotos first, and then you're looking at Klotos buffed the other 2, like what are you gonna do? There's your keystone is bricked at that point. Then Necrotic Wake, we have a tremendous set of nerfs to trash, along with a big quality of life increase, which is that the weapons persist through death. That is very welcome. I love the change, and anytime there's a change towards making wipes less punishing, I'm usually a fan of it. My firm belief is almost always that wipes are punishing enough already, and you don't need to kick the team when they're down. That's why my belief is like there should be checkpoints after every boss as well. And this, I think, it feels really bad to like, have something go wrong, and then not even be able to recover from it because you lost your javelin, and so the next pull is now impossible as well. So this is a great change. But they did target cap the javelin in the anima, which will affect that snap that was in Tells' clip of the week and in the MDI for sure.
It doesn't affect live though.
Yeah,
I think they buffed the javelin damage though, because I threw it on Monday night as they like right after they hotfixed it, and it did like double the amount of damage as it did before on my Windwalker. So, or like maybe more than double, I think, because it not only crit, but it also was more than like a crit would have previously done. I don't know. It feels like it was at least.
Interesting.
Maybe Mark of the Master Assassin Rogue is even more valuable now.
Or were you playing the Tiger Palm legendary?
No.
Somebody was speculating about this, I think, in your Discord,
legendary
about the Tiger Palm legendary that makes it so you have like 50% crit after you Tiger Palm against the target. So you'd like Tiger Palm them and then
the boss or something. So okay, how do you think that this changes like which mobs you're going to use the armaments on? Because I think right now people are using their spear on Blightbone just because it's kind of there, and the odds of you being able to keep it across the whole entire dungeon seems fairly low. Whereas now, like, you're really able to set up that spear at a more appropriate time, and you could even javelin like the final boss, which not many groups have elected to do. But I actually think that javelin the final boss, especially whenever you have like all of your players down at the very beginning, is kind of important to be able to push the boss faster, so you're not getting more shields, and like that boss takes more time the longer it goes.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, I could see that.
I think that'd be good. I'm going to keep that javelin. I'm going to use it when I get sent down on that boss so that I can immediately, kill the mob at the end and then come back up and flame the other players for not killing their angels faster.
You could use the BAP stick on it too, the hammer.
Bonk.
Bonk.
Also, so in addition to the weapons changes, there's nerfs to, I would say, most of the trash in the dungeon. Most of the trash pulls in the dungeon have some serious nerfs going on here. We've got like 20% damage or health on most mobs in this place, it looks like.
Question. So there's they nerfed the 2 mini bosses, the Skeletal Monstrosity and the
Narazuda.
I don't know how to pronounce. Yeah, Narazuda. Do you think that there is a world where you play Narazuda pack now, since the animal orb is target capped, and like that is a pretty good candidate to animal orb now with that thing having 20% less HP? Do you think it's worth? I mean, I'm not convinced, but maybe.
Maybe the animal orb does make that pull a lot easier, and as long as he dies before he does all the party damage he does, then it would be a really good count. So
yeah, there's that pull has like 2 of the necrotic bolt guys, right?
Yeah, you basically want like a balance druid.
You need the animo orb to like silence
or the
them.
orb, yeah.
Exactly. You need the orb. The orb got nerfed for like the other pulls that people were doing with it. True. Like people were using that orb on like a bunch of the casters plus the fear dudes, and it was like that's not exactly the most reasonable thing to do it now on. I actually think using El Nerfs maybe the meta play.
It still silences above 8 targets, and it still does good. Like even if you're fighting 13 targets or something, it's still doing like more than half of the damage it used to. So
does it silence every 8 targets? Do we know?
Yeah, because it's just doing distributed evenly across all targets damage. I'm pretty sure it silences everything.
It seems like it would. I don't know why it wouldn't.
It's not the usual cap that they did with like Blade Dance where it hits 5 targets only. It's it hits all targets. It's just doing damage evenly distributed. By the way, if every single thing that was target capped this expansion was done with this number 8 and with this damage distributed evenly across all targets thing, I wouldn't have had a problem with target cap for the record.
Correct.
Yeah, that is right. That would be so much nicer for like every single class.
Yeah, it's just the 5 instead of 8 is actually so rough for a lot of specs, and the fact that it's like on bolstering week, you really feel it where you're like, why did these 5 guys die first?
Dude, you know it's a meme. Like Windwalker and Hunter are actually insane, and then you hit like 10 targets, and there is like a noticeable difference in how much damage they're doing versus like whenever you're hitting 5 targets, you're like, damn, this class is OP. And you hit 10 targets, you're like, damn, this class kind of sucks.
Yeah. So yeah,
and they're not even health, which causes problems.
Bad, but
that's why you don't see the other cap specs though, because the other cap specs are like on 5 targets, you're like, oh, this class is fine, and then on 10, you're like, it's gone, right? It's not on the meters. So unless the cap specs are OP on 5 targets like Windwalker and MM,
yes,
they are just unplayable because there are those big pulls. And it's tough.
You're not going to stop doing big pulls like DOS. You're actually just going to pull every single bird, Elderhorn, invisible mob in that instance, and like
right. Again,
pulls.
You don't have to, but like the high keys are going to do it, right? Like if you're trying to compete with the team that's doing that, they're going to do higher keys than you.
I mean, you're going to have to compete versus the fire mage that's in your own party too, and it's just going to make you feel like shit, right?
Yeah.
I mean, just look at the MDI polls where they're still pulling the exact same number of mobs in each poll, basically, as previous expansions with target cap in place, because they just have to use like the specs that can deal with it the best. And there's only like 2 or 3 that can deal with it well, but they're going to keep doing it until it's literally not possible.
Right. So, I mean, maybe the fact that Mage slipped under the radar with the target. Mage got capped on their Ignite spreading, but then the expansion came out and Ignite spreading is no longer their best way to do AoE anyways. It's Flame Strike, and Flame Strike is uncapped.
What a meme.
Yeah. All right, so let's keep talking about the nerfs here, because we also have in Necrotic Wake nerfs to 3 of the 4 bosses. Mostly to Amarth. Blightbone and Stitchflesh got kind of minor quality of life ones. The worms need to bite you 5 times instead of 3 before they explode. The Void Zones last 1 minute instead of 6 minutes on Stitchflesh. And then really just the same kind of trash nerfs were applied to all of the ads that were spawned by Amarth, and the ads spawned closer to him.
There's a 20% nerf to the ad on Stitchflesh as well. That's not like
interesting.
One of the loyal Stitchwork dudes, whatever,
okay.
right above that. I don't know. Yeah, the loyal creation. It wasn't added like with the thing, but yeah.
Interesting. So yeah, 24%. That's a lot of health produced on that thing.
Yeah, that is. What do you guys think about all these Necrotic Wake changes as opposed to like, what if they did this for another dungeon? Do you think they picked the wrong dungeon? Like, I feel like this was already one of the easier keys for people to time at a high level, but maybe it's not for the like weekly 15 population.
Yeah, I felt like this was a key that was disproportionately tough as your group got less coordinated. So like we were saying, like it was already pre-nerf one of the best keys. Like it was where World First 24 was done.
Yeah.
And that's because when you're coordinated, you could do all this stuff really effectively. But I do think this was a good set of nerfs for like weekly gamers,
I'm not sure if they needed to slap down 20% HP across like every single mob in the instance. I mean, there are some mobs that needed to be hit. Like I thought the Necromancer mobs that got slapped down a little bit, like the as of the Necromancer spawns rather, not even the Necromancer himself. That felt pretty reasonable. The mini bosses that got hit a little bit. I feel like the Stitch works needed to like change how their Tenderize work, not exactly like health nerfs.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
This is emblematic of me of like the balancing problem of a dungeon like Necrotic Wake. We saw this last expansion with Toldegor as well. Toldegor was one of the best keys season 1, and then going into season 2, they were like, okay, 3 more minutes on the timer for this dungeon, right?
That's exactly.
And that's because it was, and like Necrotic Wake, it's a great key for the push groups. But for the less coordinated groups, unlike normally where, as the key goes up, the dungeon gets 8% more health and damage, and so like the lower level groups and the higher level groups are just kind of on this linear scale. With dungeons like Necrotic Wake and with Toll de Gore and with Plaguefall as well in this expansion, the more coordinated your group gets, you actually are just blasting the key at a high level because you have the weapons that scale with keystone level and don't increase in difficulty as the key goes up for those groups.
I mean, Plaguefall No Meme is an easier dungeon to do on 24 than Necrotic Wake was last week. Like, that dungeon is so free if you play the Plague Borers well.
Right, which is very reminiscent of those Toll de Gore, Siege of Borealis spotter strategies.
It's, we talked about this for how long? Whenever it was in beta, it was like, what are you doing with these Plague Borers in this dungeon? What are you doing with these Kyrian items in this dungeon? It's like, obviously this is going to be a problem, but
I mean, it's not necessarily a problem.
I think they fixed Necrotic Wake, though. I mean,
I think you got to balance around the weekly gamers, and it is unfortunate that it creates this
dichotomy,
this thing where now these keys are like going to be the easiest ones at the high level. But I don't know. End of the day, that's a pretty small population that are playing up there, and I do think that it is a shame whenever there's like you're doing a 22 key and there's like, you could roll it into one of these very doable 23s or into one of these 23s that's like you're going to have to drop to 21 to time, right? But I don't think this expansion is that offensive. I don't think there's as much of a King's Rest this expansion as there was last expansion for your key to turn into.
Why do you think DOS got no changes?
Yeah, I'm surprised to see no nerfs to the other side.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking. I would have expected more like this across the board nerf type of strategy on the other side instead of Necrotic.
Really? I feel like just a couple of the bosses in DOS are the major offenders in my mind. Like Hakar and that Chain Lightning from Dealer's Ironic is just those two things are just not all right. Hakar is one of those bosses that either you kill that boss in like 45 seconds or you get like 3 extra blood barrages and like the shield, and you're like, what the hell? And part of the problem too is that like once the boss reaches sub 20% and you have like 5 ads out, the timer for the next blood barrage starts like it's like a constant timer, right? And so once you get the shield off, the timer began before like the shield even came off. So he's about to cast blood barrage again, and you're like, oh god, we're missing the timer here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of boss shield mechanic.
It starts on cast and not the end of the shield.
The thing is, as well, it's not like Mana Storms and Mozilla are hard bosses or easy bosses either, right? Like those ones, it's a dungeon that's already got tough bosses you would normally want to lust, but you can't.
Did you say Mozilla?
Yeah. Brother to Vuvuzuela.
Vuvuzuela.
Mozilla Firefox?
Yes.
Yeah. Sister to Mozzarella.
It's just a dungeon that's really, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's got to just be the opposite of these Necrotic Wakes, right? Where it's like, it's got to be this dungeon where at the low key levels, it's actually pretty good. I imagine that is the case for it, right? Because like, I don't think you noticed the Arcane Lightning on Zyronic on the low key level, right?
That is true.
And the Hakar dies before you have like 7 ads. On M0 week, I remember thinking, oh, this is a free boss. There's no.
This boss has one
mechanics. Yeah.
and then you do a guild group the next week, and you're like, wait, what's killing everyone?
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe down the line, I feel like the way to adjust this, if they insist on having some of these dungeons that have like the weapons carrying you that scale with key level, is to like adjust the coefficient. So like make it so that Necrotic Wake gains more health and damage per key level than the other side does.
I got a bone to pick with Blizzard Entertainment. You remember how they changed Tyrannical going into this expansion to not work with ad spawns off of bosses? Why does Droman from Ingram Mallock and why the hell do the ads from Mozzarella or Mozilla or whatever the hell you want to call that boss, why did those scale with Tyrannical but the rest of like the ads summoned by bosses not? Like, I thought that this was
Apparently they've been re-adding ads in to scale with Tyrannical as the expansion's been going on, according to Squishy. Like they all started with no modifier on them on Tyrannical, and they've been like re-adding them back to how it used to be in BFA.
I can't wait until we get that spreadsheet again. Do you guys remember that spreadsheet of like, here are the boss abilities that scale with Fortified, here are the ones that don't scale with either affix, and here are the ones that scale with Tyrannical? Yeah.
So bad.
I thought it was a good change. I didn't think it was enough, but I thought it was a move in a good direction when they were like, okay, look, just the boss, just the one primary target boss will be the one that scales with Tyrannical. and like everything else will not. And I was like, okay,
I mean,
now it's like it makes sense in my head. I'll know what scales. I don't need a spreadsheet, and like they're nerfing a hard affix. But reversing that is definitely unfortunate.
One does not simply understand the thought process of Blizzard sometimes. It's just an enigma, and we must accept their teachings.
I mean, it's just so bad for some bosses like Hakar and like Nalthor, the Rhinebinder from like that's the last
The ones
boss
that shield themselves, yeah.
So, the ones that shield themselves are actually just so toxic.
Zav
on
in
Tyrannical.
Theater of Pain, where it's just like, okay, I'm gonna summon a banner.
The banner, yeah,
Yeah. Those mechanics drive people nuts.
it's disproportionately.
It's like
terrible.
compounding. It compounds the Tyrannical, where like a boss that has 30% more health, instead of taking 30% more time, already is taking longer because you have less cooldowns, right? You're spending a smaller percentage of the boss fight in your cooldowns, but you're also now taking even more time because you're getting more of these extra ad spawns or barrier phases or whatever. So yeah.
It seems like it's actually becoming even more of like a common man issue too, where it's just like even like further down the line, people are just like fucked, right? I don't get that shit out.
That's the thing, right? Last expansion, weekly 15s, you didn't feel tyrannical. I preferred tyrannical in a weekly 15 last expansion. This expansion, I think even in the weekly 15, you do these bosses, you're like,
Yeah, the weekly 15 crowd was like, what the fuck is this a fix, man?
All right, we do, in addition to dungeon changes, have some raid changes as well. Castle Nathria. Council of Blood, nerfed for small raid sizes, and normal and heroic stuff. Okay.
All right, I'll take it.
Sludge
Not
Fist.
That's fine.
The roar damage, 10% on Mythic. Chain Slam, 35% on Mythic. And Chain Bleed, 35% on Mythic. Big nerfs to Sludge
35%.
Fist. Yeah,
Your
35% is... That's a lot of nerf.
Do I take damage on that fight anymore? So, like, the funny thing is that that chain slam is mitigated by armor, and if you are,
not, but the slam is.
Yeah, the bleed is not, but the slam is. And if you're a clothy, then you get absolutely rolled.
The
like
roar
notably
too.
Priests.
The roar is also is fizz. All damage on this fight is fizz.
Yeah, exactly.
I believe the roar is mitigated by armor, although some physical AoE effects aren't. But I think the roar is.
The roar is.
Yeah.
The roar definitely. I don't take damage on that fight, but it's like they're clothies, and it's like the mages obviously have shield, but like if they don't have shield up, notably the priests get absolutely smoked on that boss. And if they ever had to be in like the chain slam group, they're like, oh yes, I'm pressing dispersion, I'm not gonna die here. And it's just like so unreasonable for anybody, like, and it's just like, oh, they nerfed it by 35%, and now your moonkins actually take 0 damage from it, and your clothies are able to deal with it.
I love that. So given that they've chosen to nerf Sludge Fist, which I don't have too strong of an opinion on, I'm fine with it. I love that this is the way that they're nerfing the boss rather than doing like health-based nerfs. I think that this is a boss that it's great to maintain that DPS check on. So
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think this is a great change, given that they want to change the boss. Which again, I'm not a priest, so I don't care. I'm playing Vengeance Demon Hunter on this fight, which on heroic this fight, it slaps our tanks around at item level 180. On mythic as a Vengeance Demon Hunter, I can live this fight for like 2 minutes after the other tank dies and just take double damage, and it's totally fine. The spec is so broken. So cool.
Yes, tank balance is so good.
Yes. Stone Legion Generals, we have
you pulled that boss yet?
Tremendous set of changes to Stone Legion Generals. I haven't pulled it yet, no. We just did 8 out of 10 on Tuesday. We're coming back tomorrow, and we'll do Stone Legion and Sire. But from reading this, from watching other guilds do it a little bit, this set of changes is by far almost exactly what the fight needed. So Goliath cooldown on Ravenous Feast reduction. Skirmisher, slight health reduction, pretty negligible. You can't outrange the swipe, the tear, or the fist anymore. Their damage has been reduced a little bit to compensate. Heartrend, you can't outrage during the intermission anymore. No longer applies Heart Hemorrhage to the player who dispelled the effect. Okay, so that's a lot less punishing, and you don't do the Massive Spell Sacrifice strat anymore. Spell cooldowns now reset with phase changes. This is the one. This is the change that is the best one in this list. It is so good. This fight was so unbelievably bad prior to this change being implemented. It was the single worst fight I've ever done, and now I'm pretty confident that it's fine. It's a fine
dude. Okay,
to progress on.
You remember the meme whenever we were skipping Shadow of Zul and then they nerfed it? Okay, so actually some of these changes, you're going to have some issues reprogressing this fight. The Heart Hemorrhage one and the one with the tank damage. And there was like the meme about the Shadow of Zul, like oh, they nerfed his health by 6%, but don't allow us to skip it anymore. So they buffed his health by 94% or whatever.
94%.
That's the tank damage shit, dude. Your tanks actually get the fucking sauce now on this.
Right, because now you actually have to tank swap the Stone Fist instead of just leaping everyone.
During the intermission, and like your healers are having to heal the Heart Rend during the intermission. You're like, holy shit, we're dying.
Yeah. Okay. So there may be some added difficulty here, but the way that this fight was done before was so dumb. You were like waiting for specific times to push every phase. You were hoping you were going to get good spell queuing, and if you got bad spell queuing in P1 intermission, it was bad the rest of the fight. And now, so timers resetting is really welcome. And you also you needed to leap every single Stone Fist during the second intermission, because if you failed to do that, then the spell queuing would be potentially broken in the last phase, and you would just get an upheaval linking with the last blast, and you would die every single time that happened.
It's a funny meme. Phase 2 intermission and phase 3 are all like virtually identical to the timings that you wanted and the timings that a lot of guilds did. Phase 1 is the only thing. Like phase 1 and phase 1 intermission are the only things that's like actually changed.
Right, and the tank stuff in the later phases.
The tank stuff is obviously a little bit different. So they're taking a lot more.
You basically had to time all of your pushes to make the cooldowns effectively reset with phase changes, because you had to wait until the perfect time to push. So
you need the crystallize
timers. Yeah,
because you had to have the crystallize at a very specific point. And there's obviously some other shit with wicked blades and trying to dunk orbs, and there's a bunch of random carb. That's a good change. It's a good change for the fight. The fight should have been like that from the beginning.
This is one of those sets of changes where this has been messaged, I think, even since beta, but even since week 1 Mythic, it's been pretty clear that this change needed to happen. So it's nice to see it here. Every guild that hasn't yet pulled this boss is going to have a much better life than those that have already killed it. The guilds that killed it pre-nerf, we kind of got this. Do you remember pre-nerf Stone Legion generals when we had to do that thing? But I'm really happy to see this. I'm really happy to see this set of changes. If they hadn't changed this boss, we were just not going to kill it ever again. That was going to be our life. Is Discord getting all laggy? Am I laggy?
Yeah, it's pretty laggy.
Oh no!
It's laggy for me too. I didn't know. Hold on, I can change where we're doing it.
All right, it sounds like Tettles is going to change our Discord server. Oh my goodness, it worked.
Premier audio fidelity coming in from Discord.
Poggers. Do you know that Limit switched back to TeamSpeak this tier, and I kind of think that might be the play. Discord is it's good, but if you're rating even 16 hours a week, there's a good chance you're going to have weird audio at one of those hours every week.
Yeah.
It's nice that it comes to the forum though. Discord having the being half forum, half voice. It's just
that's the big deal. Is the forum, right?
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so that's dungeon and raid changes. Let's do this topic that we got sent from Discord, which is so here's the premise. You are given control of WoW development, and you get to make one change to each of the following things. There are 4 different ones. We'll go through these one at a time. We can start with Tettles. So, Tettles, what would you change about M+ affixes other than delete tyrannical? You're not allowed to say delete tyrannical.
Okay, so what would I change about Mythic Plus affixes? I think that I would try to...
It's one change. First off, make one change. So this is not a manifesto. This is your top priority change. You have a one thing to implement.
I would make Necrotic not stack the way it currently does.
Okay. I think that's a very fair way to do it. Yeah, we've talked about this before. My suggestion for it was to make it like a 20-second debuff that stacks but doesn't increase in time when it gets applied. Right. So you just naturally reset every 20 seconds. But I think that there are a lot of ways to make Necrotic more feasible, more manageable as well. Trell, what would your one change to M+ affixes be?
Well, I think I could say this. It's not just delete tyrannical, but I would remove both fortified and tyrannical. Okay. And just have we just cut off that entire affix row and just have the other affixes on the same rotation or whatever. But it would make dungeon balance per week a lot better, and there wouldn't be just completely dead weeks, I don't think. Yeah,
I think that's fair. Somebody in my Discord actually posted like a tyrannical replacement idea where there's seasonal tyrannical. So this time around it's Sire Denathrius themed, and you just during boss fights you would get massacre casts the same way that they happen in Sire.
What an awful fix. That'd be really funny though.
Fun. Massacre owns. Massacre is so fun to do.
What bosses? I mean, there are bosses that's just like not
actually
doable.
To hard code it to like not happen during certain events. Yeah, like
Oh yeah, Massacre during the stun on second boss of Halls. That would be great.
I thought it was a cool idea though, like adding seasonality to Tyrannical themed on the raid boss. Like just the raid boss, like Sire shows up and like casts a bit of Sire ability during the boss fight sometimes.
That would be far more interesting though, I will admit.
Oh, random blood price.
Would you add
blood price? No. What was your question, Tuttles?
As I said, would any of you guys like add an affix or like add something as opposed to starting to remove something?
My change would be a adjustment as well. I would change bolstering. I would make bolstering have a duration and fall off after like again 20 seconds or something.
Dude, I was about to say just make this affix set not exist. If I was gonna say they bolstering and necrotic together,
split up bolstering and necrotic for sure, and tyrannical. Any week should be one of those three affixes at most. All three at the same time is so brutal.
But like, would you add any affixes? Like, is there something that like is on your mind that you would think to be like, damn, that would be sick to add?
This would not be sick to add, but here's a good affix. As DPS players, every time you hit a mob, you gain a 1% damage reduction that lasts for 8 seconds until you stop damaging completely for the duration of the debuff. Imagine if that was an affix for a tank. Oh wait, it is. It's called necrotic.
Oh well, your damage doesn't matter.
I see. So you're trying to help DPS players understand how bad necrotic feels. Yeah. I see. Yeah. I mean that does sound awful. I'll give you that. All right, next category: dungeon tuning. Tettles, what is your one change you make to dungeon tuning? I would say this can be like one dungeon, a couple of
one dungeon.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it would be like I would actually
or dungeon tuning as a whole. Like you could change.
I would change like how much white swings hit for as a whole on tanks. I feel like the kite meta that we have right now is pretty fucking bad.
Ooh, big agree on that.
I mean, okay, like it's not that the kite meta inherently is terrible. Like your tank's gonna have to kite eventually, but the fact that your tanks have to Elysian Decree and then immediately fucking run is just like, all right. Elysian Decree and Bail is not it.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. Trial, how about you? Do you have a different one, or do you want to agree?
Dungeon tuning, yeah, I definitely agree on that. I think that every single white swing of mobs should be reduced by like 30%, and they should nerf Vengeance so that other tanks can be brought to keys and actually be viable. But with both of those things together, I think tanks would be more balanced and able to do high keys.
I don't know that Vengeance needs to be nerfed. I mean, Bear is like equivalent to Vengeance right now in terms of survivability. They just don't have Elysian Decree on demand threat.
I do think that there needs to be some balancing to the tanks. Like if you look at the
Tuttles,
front page,
you don't think Vengeance should be nerfed? Yeah, like look at the front page.
I think that other tanks should be more buffed than Vengeance needs to be nerfed. I mean, the issue with Vengeance is that Vengeance is like only. All right, maybe Vengeance is fucking that good, but
yeah. Go ahead and keep scrolling, right? Look,
it's
another
number
color.
40 where you find a the top 39 runs are Vengeance Demon Hunters.
Okay, so, but like for what it's worth, my point is that like Brewmaster and
97
Guardian are both
of the top Hundy are Vengeance runs,
all right.
man.
But isn't that indicative of like, okay, so Guardian doesn't have the same threat as Vengeance, and Brewmaster doesn't have the survivability of Vengeance. But if you like, if you ticked both of those up just a hair,
other tanks do have similar qualities in some aspects of tanking, but Vengeance has the whole package. So yes, something needs to change.
I don't know if I would nerf Vengeance is like that though. I think that the way I would nerf Vengeance is I would bring the other tanks up, but
I could see tuning Vengeance down a hair, but I do agree that like the way Vengeance feels to play is better than the way almost all other tanks feel to play, right? And I think that like rather than make Vengeance worse against the dungeons, I think you do want to make the other tanks better against the dungeons.
I mean, especially since you have fucking Prot Paladin that gets actually just mowed down on a 15, man.
Yeah, they should have Shield of the Righteous back into the game or something. That was pretty good. You remember when you used to press Shield of the Righteous and get more tanky rather than get like 20 armor?
Yeah, it's so sad.
That's cool.
I mean, obviously everyone wants 5 tanks to be buffed rather than nerfing one, but the way Blizzard does things is they always choose the easiest option, so they're going to nerf the one tank. unfortunately.
I agree with you that like the knee-jerk response when somebody says, oh, nerf this spec, everybody's like, oh, just buff everything else. But in this case, I actually do think that like tanks should be buffed and vengeance should be nerfed. Maybe is a way of describing it.
You think both need to have? I mean, maybe.
Yeah.
I think Elysian Decree is probably a little bit too. If I had to nerf Vengeance, I'd probably nerf Elysian Decree. I think that's the one that I would probably hit over anything else. But like,
No, I'll just go Venthyr, man. Venthyr.
I mean, dude, number one Rio tank is Venthyr.
Is it?
One's Evade, yeah.
Oh, is Evade number one Rio still?
Yep.
Because the other guy just got the 24.
Maybe not if the guy got the 24, but Evade was.
Let's see.
Ventyr's actually not bad on Vengeance, but I think Evade does want to be Kyrian. He's just playing Venthyr for now for raid.
Is he? Okay. Interesting. I think Venthyr is sweet for Vengeance.
I think it's actually really good too. It slows down everything when you're in meta by a lot around you, gives you more tankiness.
All right, my change for dungeon tuning. Yeah, I think I would agree with. I would do buff tanks, maybe buff tanks, nerf Vengeance. Is what I would do.
I don't know if I would necessarily even need to like hit something or like hit a dungeon. I think that like the biggest issue I do see is the kite.
If I had to do a dungeon specific thing, I'd do like nerf Hakar,
boss,
nerf Hakar, add time to DOS, something like that.
Yeah, I think
that's raid tuning. Raid tuning is our next category. Tettles, do you have a raid tuning suggestion?
They just slammed down Stone Legion Generals changes. Would I hit anything else? I don't think anything else. I don't think anything else really needs to be hit. Like I feel like the rest of the instance is pretty good. I do feel like the instance is pretty solid.
Yeah, I would have said Stone Legion, especially before the nerfs yesterday, but I'm not sure now. Some of the more annoying bosses are like Council of Blood on Mythic. Maybe something there, but I'm not sure exactly.
Maybe Council of Blood, if you don't do the meta order, I would probably slap down maybe a little bit, because like doing the correct order on Council of Blood is like a significant like time increase, and it's way easier to do. But
for me, I would delete raid buffs and
fair enough.
Nerf AMZ to 5% instead of 20%. Those would be my.
Oh, you're doing raid tuning like
changes.
that.
Yeah,
I didn't think about that.
Raid. Those would be my adjustments.
Um,
I like that, yeah.
Because I don't know, like right now it's difficult for me to
the
foresee
bosses are good.
A tier where you play like any melee other than stacking DKs, and then like one
stacking
monk maybe
rock.
for monk buff, one warrior maybe for warrior buff, especially if those specs are good. Otherwise, you just play them in your tank rolls. One havoc for havoc buff if havoc's good, and then you just fill your tanks up with whichever of those specs aren't good, and then you don't have any other melee in your raid.
No, you would stack a ROG if you needed an immunity.
If you need an immunity, yeah, but in this tier, AMS functions to immune all the same stuff that Cloak would have, which is why
yes.
part of the reason that you saw Unholy. It's possible for them to create a tier where AMS doesn't function as Cloak of Shadows on a shorter cooldown. They've done that in the past, but yeah, so you would play rogues for that. But AMZ in the 20% state it's in right now is so good. It's like, I mean, Barrier was a huge reason that Priest was good in several tiers last expansion, and AMZ is just Barrier, except it doesn't work on Sludge Fist. So yeah, I mean,
yeah, it's very powerful.
Even at 5%, it would still be really good. That thing would.
Would you delete Devo Aura? You said you delete raid buffs. Would you delete Devo Aura?
Sure, yeah, and keep Aura Mastery for Pallies or whatever.
Okay.
I think all that stuff where you're like looking at your checklist and you're like, okay, we need to add one warrior, one paladin, one monk, one warlock, one whatever, one mage, one priest, all of that. I feel like that checklist, it gets to a point where rather than making specs see play that otherwise wouldn't, you're now in this spot where you're like, hello, I'm a feral druid, I would like a spot in this raid. Oh, there are 2 flex spots on the list.
I mean, dude,
I can't compete for them, instead of there being like the 14 DPS slots that you can compete for.
Boomy and Hunter No Meme actually had that problem where it's like, what the fuck, we're competing against like Warlock, which has almost, I would say Gate is like almost mandatory utility.
The first Warlock is effectively a raid buff, like Health Stones are a raid buff.
Health Stones and summoning people to fucking instants and shit like that.
This race to World first, but
I mean, part of the utility was turned off
for other guilds, yeah. So yeah, I think it would go a long way towards making it so you could actually like get a raid spot, because in these top 100 guilds, there's actually so few of those like spots. Like when we're making our rosters, it's actually like 18 things are required, and then there's like 2 slots where we're like, okay, who do we bring for these 2 slots? Oh, interesting. And you know, it's a lot worse, I think. Okay.
Agreed.
Last one here: gearing systems. Tettles, gearing systems, one change.
I would bring back tier sets, tier bonuses.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's on the cards for later this expansion. I think it'll be very interesting to see the implementation they choose for that.
I would bring back tier bonuses in the way that they were in the past. I don't know if I want some bad bullshit. But...
Yeah, are you talking about like 5 items, 4 set bonus, drops from raid?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm open to ideas where you can get them through M+ and PvP as well.
I would be open to ideas of that as well. Yeah, I agree with that.
I do think that implementation is important here with what they choose to do. There are a lot of ways that tier sets can go wrong, but I liked the way that tier sets made my spec feel different in patch like 7.1 versus 7.2, and I feel like that is something that has been lost since BFA came out.
I love the dichotomy of like actually like having a pretty big shakeup in terms of balancing between tiers too, versus like who had the OP tier bonus versus who had the shit tier bonus, because then you see shit like, oh my god, enhancement has a 15% tier bonus this tier. OMG, this thing owns.
Yeah, I thought that was cool as well.
Like in Taurus enhancement shaman actually just piped because they had some tier bonus that was like a 12% gain.
I do think there was a lot wrong with Legion tiers, like 2-piece, 4-piece, 2-piece, 2-piece, like legendary slot overlap, all that stuff. And this expansion, you know, there's only the one legendary, right? And you choose which slot it's in. So I think they could go back to just 5 instead of 6 slots with the 4-piece, and then you can't do 2-piece, 4-piece. I'm not sure. It's definitely an interesting challenge to solve.
Yeah, that's the only problem I remember about that. Otherwise, I really like tier set bonuses. And what if they like added a currency that you could get the tier set bonus from either Mythic Plus PvP or Raid, and you could just slap it on whichever
so if it was
piece
like
of gear that you already have from
like
whichever
a
content.
Scroll of tier set bonus,
yeah.
And you can get that currency from anything, and you enchant your gear with the tier bonus. That'd be cool.
Yeah, I would like that.
Do you have is that your one change, or do you have a different suggestion, Trial?
No, I have a completely different one.
Okay.
I would like to gear my characters in the content that I prefer, so I would create a replica of the PvP gearing system and just apply that to Mythic Plus. And honestly, I don't think Mythic Plus needs loot at the end of the dungeons if they have that system. So you can get your 35 anima, but you can also get Valor points or whatever currency they want to call it, and go get your items eventually, 1 per week.
I think that would accelerate gear too quick. If it's implemented exactly like that, though, where it's like unique systems.
One problem with that is that the PvP, like the gearing of somebody who does all 3, is still going to be way faster than the gear of somebody
infinitely faster.
The M+. I think that my perspective on gearing has always been that if you do all 3 forms of content, you should be more geared than somebody who just does one. But I do think there should be like,
I think that's going to be the case,
right?
Either
like if
way,
you're a
right?
heavy M+er or a heavy PvPer, I think you should be pretty comfortably geared. And if you're somebody who does both, you should be like 1.3 times as geared as somebody who does just one.
Not 2x.
Not 2x, right? So I do think that there has to be some creative solutions that accomplish that. I think though that for the M+ only player, a gearing system that looks like PvP's would be really welcome, where you like maybe you still get items end of dungeon, but they're lower eye level, and then you can upgrade them with Valor points, or Justice and Valor points of some kind. Those have been the currency they've used for PvE in the past. And maybe you could you get 184s at your end of your M+ run, and you get a boatload of Justice, and you can immediately use Justice to upgrade 184s up to like 200, and then you can use Valor to upgrade M+ items from 200 up to 226 based on the highest keys you've done. Where all 11s lets you get up to 207, all 12s 213, etc., all the way up. Something like that I think would be there's a lot of really good stuff about the PvP loot system that I think PvP only gamers, they have some problems as well. I do think that their particularly early patch, they had problems with like those weak slots of their gear were really weak. Now that's fixed though, as the downrated PvP level has gone up.
The issue with PvP too is that you're competing against another player, and if the other player is also doing all 3 forms of content, and they show up in your fucking arena and they have 25 item levels on you, and it doesn't matter if you're a rank 1 player, they're just gonna fucking murder you.
Yeah, I mean that's how you and I got 2400 this season. That's that's the way. I do think that the PvP they've messed around. So I'm not a PvP expert, but I know that the last couple expansions they've messed around with like templating, PvP scaling, and those came with their own set of problems. Those were designed to fix that issue, right? Those were designed to make it so that like a 25 item level advantage was an advantage, but not insurmountable, making it go back to just gear being gear in PvP. It has other advantages. It makes a lot of things more intuitive. It does mean that, you're going to lose to somebody who's more geared than you almost every time.
Stat templating, I would argue, is bad for the game.
Yeah, I thought that was.
Legion had stat templating, which was like obviously it's beneficial for PvPers, but I would literally argue that it's just not good for the future of the game, which is like
you just loaded into like the outlaw rogue set and like all your trinkets were turned off or whatever, and it was just like it was scaled up based on how much item level you had, and you had the same amount of crit and mastery as every other outlaw rogue, just slightly more if you had more item level, but very little. Like it was 10% as impactful as item level was in PvE, and that. It led to gear not mattering at all for PvE, but for PvP, which was in an
PvP. I don't know, man. PvP is
right?
So unlucky. Like it's impossible to like have it balanced. I feel like for
you
PvP.
Can't have both. You can't have it both ways, right? You can't have the gear matter and also not lose when the other person is way more geared than you, right? Like there's not really an answer to that. I don't know.
I mean, I'm just saying, if you want to go try to gear up let's say an alt Vengeance Demon Hunter right now, and you're not good at PvP, you got to spend hours and hours of your time trying to get actual gear, and you have to be Night Fae to PvP at a reasonable level, which you don't want to be Night Fae for PvE as Demon Hunters. You gotta pick your poison, and it's like night and day on either side of the fence.
Yeah.
For me, that's enough to where I just don't even want to play an alt. Like I would rather just not play.
I do like the way that PvP gearing, the conquest cap being so high now. Like if you make an alt and you spend a week in RBGs or whatever, and you cap conquest, you get to 1800, or week in threes, you cap conquest, you get to 1800. You can actually buy like 7 items now, or 8 items in 8 slots of your choosing, and upgrade them. You need a lot of honor to upgrade all those items actually, so you'd have to do a lot of. You could do
that's
the
a
honor
lot of
grind
PvP.
You could do the honor grind and like. Watching Netflix while doing random battlegrounds or whatever.
But at least it's grindable. At least it's possible.
But so what I'm saying is that like I love that PvP gearing in month 3 is faster than it was in week 1, and that is not really true of M+ or raid gearing, right? M+ and raid gearing, there's no sort of expanding cap that you can catch all the way up to as fast as you want, and I think that would be another cool thing to look into adding to those systems. For PvP gearing, I would improve it as well. I would make it so that at the start of next patch, you can actually get good gear from PvPing, like in your off slots, from like end of match rewards or something. Not like high item level, but like 197 like 184.
Like yeah. Like, well, I mean, they could get 197 from upgrading.
They can now from honor, but like start a patch, you couldn't upgrade past. Even 184 wasn't possible until like week 5.
Yeah, it was like what 170.
Yeah.
Okay.
Something.
Yeah. Never mind.
So I would add
back
like end of match
stuff.
rewards at the Mythic Plus end of dungeon-ish tier rewards. Because I think that was a nice thing about M+ gearing, was that you could spam your way up to like normal heroic raid gear pretty quick.
But I mean, they have Conquest Vendor on top of the vault too, which is like kind of
right. The Conquest Vendor, like I'm saying, PvP gearing is really good.
Yeah, exactly.
If you just took all the advantages of PvP gearing and you gave it to M+ and raid, then all of a sudden PvP gearing would be the worst, right? So I think that those few advantages that M+ and raid gearing do have, if you do want to export over the PvP gearing advantages to those systems, should probably find a way of getting over to PvP as well. And again, you should be better geared if you do all 3, but you shouldn't be 3 times better geared, I don't think. Because I think that is just too much. Okay, that was a cool topic. I don't know who sent that question in. I don't know if Tettles wrote it down anywhere.
I'm Andy from the Discord.
Okay, that was a great question. Thanks for sending that in. If anybody else has, anytime we're over these next couple months, we are going to be a little bit light on topics as we enter this sort of content valley between patches. So we'll do a lot of topics from the Discord if there are good ones there. So do hop in, join there, and submit those. This is also the part of the podcast where we get to support or to thank our supporters over at patreon.com/Titanforge who make the show possible. They are Paul of US Proudmore, Soulbinds are just an underdeveloped dating simulator, Riley Wholesome Adjacent, oh man, I can't believe Tettles actually said that during the MDI, Gopher.
True.
Hi, I'm Mac and I'm a balanced druid reroll because melee is cursed this tier. King of Skills, Zuko, Jaw, I Wish I Was Ratnus's Dino Pillow, Chromed, Trekkie, the Marsh Hare, Regulus, Never Nude, Chewy, Torghast, aka Tower of Repetitive Generic Hurdles, advocating sadistic tiredness. True. I haven't been a Torghast in a month, man.
Sadistic tiredness. That's so accurate.
Tettles has been speedrunning Torghast, though. He's got his sub 6 minute.
Sub 6 minute. I was ranked
Player
1
8.
for approximately a few hours, and then somebody else took it. But we will be back in there grinding down the time later.
Is it on speedrun.com?
Yes, it is on speedrun.com.
Oh my god.
All right. Pops and Pets, Best Survival Hunter, Zul'jin, Sonara, Breadceratops, Necris, Revdil, Less Demon, More Hunter, Nevok, Sinmora, Eevee, Frosty K, New Meta, Stevenson, an unnamed benefactor, Take Light of the Protector and Frenzied Regen off the GCD, Wobonesy No Verse, No Trick, I Scheduled a Tettle's Flame, Sire Dematicus, Call the Law Offices of the Sean Gill if you've ever been a victim of the Iron Fur Bug, Dymat, Syncbee, Gamerdad in Training, 44, Supra, Lufer, I guess I'm a DH main at heart, Hanny is going to pump in Shadowlands, Nyx, Flick, Van Heelen is back, but isn't sure what to do now, Gallic, Brusic, Chewy, Dratnos Routes Abyss, it's Moezala, not Muzela, weird champ,
Mozilla.
Mozilla, Mozzarella, M-Sanity, Eastphase EU now recruiting, please let my Survival Hunter have a raid spot, Rerolling Shaman to avoid having to get a Lust Pet, PogChamp, nice, Canyon and Moon Sonara of Emerald Dream Division 7 and Area 52 Scraw. Thanks everybody for the support, much appreciated. Thank you to all the patrons. If your name isn't on this list, by the way, and it should be, it was an oversight. Tettles is in charge of that, so there's a lot of stuff goes wrong over there. Yeah, it's just how it is. So do reach out to me or him, or put it in add us in the Discord. We'll sort it out for you. All right, Q&A time. Anastasia asks in Discord, what are your thoughts on if gear overall is too sparse and what can be done about it? Is it really just a hangover from BFA Loot Pinata, or is it feeling too slow still? I think we actually did a good job of talking about this in the main topic. I think it's an interesting point, though, about the hangover from BFA Loot Pinata. Do either of you have a take on that?
I think that the issue isn't that loot is inherently slower. I think the issue is that some avenues of loot are extremely quick compared to other avenues. So some avenues are just like intrinsically feel worse. I do also think that part of it is loot hanger, though. I do actually think that that's part of it. But I think a bigger issue is that once you have people start doing content that they really don't want to do, such as PvPers raiding or raiders PvPing, then you start to get into difficult territory where it's like, extent, oh god.
There's always been high-end raiders that always PvP, right? It's always been worth it, and raiders always find a way to sneak into, or PvPers always find a way to sneak into raid. But like everybody in my guild PvP'd this tier. Last year it was like 5 people that liked to PvP that PvP'd, and this tier it was all of us.
But all PvPers had to raid.
Yes, and I agree that shouldn't be like that. Go ahead, Joel.
Yeah, we talked a lot about the PvP stuff, but I do think the raid loot is really, really scarce. Like getting a raid piece in general once per week is like a rare thing as an individual.
Yeah, I mean,
and like targeting a piece is impossible just about because there's no bonus rolls. You have to like either get really lucky in your vault or get really lucky and get one of the, like 2 pieces that drop from the boss.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. I think that like we just have this. There's this feeling where it's like exciting. You right click the boss and you're like, what did I get? And like that you used to be rewarded like 50% of the time on a boss kill with like a good feeling. And this expansion, it's like 35 anima, the overwhelming majority of the time you right click on a boss. And that's just, I don't know. I feel like a lot of it would be finding something that doesn't feel as bad as 35 anima to award for a boss kill as well.
100
Maybe
anima.
like Valor points, perhaps?
Yeah, Valor points I think would go a long way to that. And I'd be like, oh yes, collecting my Valor points. Very cool. Or even just more anima, man. Is 35? Do they really need to give us this little anima? Like, I get it. I get that there's
35
no
anima, so little.
But like, you actually do want to have some anima, right? Like, you actually want to I think they were just worried about people being done with the grind early because it is a finite grind, right? It's a finite grind to build all your buildings and buy the cosmetics, but like it's a huge finite grind. If you're earning like 2,500 anima per week, that's not, you're going to be done in like 7 years or something with buying all the cosmetics and building your buildings and stuff. So heaven forbid you switch covenants as well. So I think they could just give us 100 anima. I don't know, man. 35 is just, it's such a weird number that it's the same from like M plus and right, and it's just so low. All right, next question comes from Lil Bit in Discord, who asks, what are your thoughts on PI this expansion, mainly in Raid? I think Dungeons is interesting too, though.
So I think in Dungeons it's not exactly like always worth to bring. Like as long as PI is not in a state where disc is like mandatory because of PI, I think for Dungeons it's fine. For Raid, I think it causes a lot of animosity amongst raiders, which is the biggest issue I see. It's not that PI is like actually the most insane damage gain, but between players and like who's getting PI, what classes are competitive not because of PI, but like with PI, and then like looking at raid parses is a meme, but people actually do care. Parsing is a fucking joke, but like at the same time, having parses like completely skewed whether or not people get PI or not. It is also
the Kira, the guy who makes who maintains Warcraft logs and makes it, I guess, is like gonna make a partition where it's just like the rankings are, you can't get up there if you got PI. So it'll only list like non-PI parses.
That's not even cool either, because like,
yeah,
there are some classes and or specs and or people that are like intrinsically should be getting PI like in your raid. Like I don't know how the fuck you bring a mage to Sludgefist without getting them PI. Like they should be getting PI on Sludgefist basically every single time they're in the raid, right? Same with like hunters on Stone Legion generals should always be getting PI, especially during the burns. And it's just like, all right, well,
yeah. I have a lot of issues with PI. I think it should just not go on other people. I think it should just be reserved for the priest. For one, it makes MDI the healing meta in MDI. It has to be a disciplined priest, like we talked about earlier, if they can heal.
Well, that's because of meld. Well, that's because of meld, right?
Among the meld healers, disciplined priest has the PI. I think even without meld, you see a lot of priest because of PI on the mage.
It would still be 100% mandatory priest without meld, because it just gives more damage on a DPS player than any other healer could possibly bring. I mean, Holy Paladin could actually contend for a little bit better, but those two would be the meta still because of PI. And in Raid, like, imagine there's 2 Unholy DKs or 2 hunters, and 1 hunter or 1 Unholy DK always gets the PI, and you're the other person in that group that has to watch that every single time. Like, I just hate that. That's just
I don't personally care about that. I just think that like that's not the issue with me. The issue is that the animosity that it brings between the people.
Right. Well, the animosity is caused because of how it feels to not be getting PI, right?
Like, oh yeah.
Want somebody else to get it? I don't know.
One of my DKs in chat says, haha, yeah, I wouldn't know about that. He's not the PI recipient.
DK, right?
He is not the PI recipient of the Unholy Death Knight branch.
Exactly. I play Windwalker. Like, I don't get PI, but just seeing like how they have to be in that position, I would not feel good about that.
I understand that like they wanted to bring it back and it's unique, right? Like if you just make it another cooldown for yourself, you're removing something interesting from the game. But I do think this one, it causes more problems than it solves. So yeah, I agree. Get it out of here. It's it is, one ability is causing way too much trouble. I
agree.
All right. Well, speaking of causing way too much trouble, we will be back. Presumably, I think next week for same time. Is that the idea?
Next Wednesday. I think that
something like
that.
Be, yeah, we'll aim for next week same time. Because of course then this weekend there's no MDI. There's AWC instead, and then the weekend after it's MDI again, and then it's like BlizzCon Online, like 2 weekends after that or something. So that'll be cool. I expect that we'll hear about 9-1 then. That should be cool. But until then, we'll be back next week. Bye everybody.
Bye.
Bye.